Okay, so welcome again to the Netivot Shalom weekly shir. We're going to talk about one of the Netivot Shalom's Torah on Bein Hamitzarim. Bein Hamitzarim is the period of time that we're in right now. It started with Shiva Asher Tammuz, when the walls of Yerushalayim were broken, were breached. Yerushalayim was put under siege, and leading up to Tisha'Bav, which is when the holy Beis Hamikdash were destroyed. The holy temples were destroyed. And we hope that we don't have to go through it again this year, that the Mashiach will come before, so we won't have to go through the fast of Tisha'Bav. But just in case, we have to prepare ourselves and go through the Torah about Bein Hamitzarim, this particular 3-week time, and Tisha'Bav itself. Next week, I'll do one on, I believe, on Tisha'Bav itself. Bein Hamitzarim, the words mean between the narrow places. You look at the word Mitzarim, it can almost be read Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim, Egypt. When we were in Exodus in Egypt, it was a very narrow place. We were confined. We didn't even have the ability to think on our own. Everything was governed, including our ability to think. The hard work that we were doing, that we ended up doing, totally took over our body and soul. So Bein Hamitzarim refers to these 3 weeks in which we're kind of in a crunch between what was before Shiva Asher Tammuz and Tisha'Bav. And now this particular Torah is called Mashmot HaVelut Ashdukokot Vagagoyim. The meaning of the Avelut, of the mourning on Tisha'Bav, is taught to us by virtue of the desire and the longing for the Beis Hamikdash that we have. So this is what we're going to be talking about. Let's begin and see what the Netivot Shalom says. Chazal Omrim. The sages tell us, Shoali Madorshi Behilchos Hamoed, before any festival, we should ask and explain the laws of the festival. Included this concept of studying, learning about the halachas of the moed, of the festival 30 days before, is the concept that every festival that we have is unique to the Jew, and a Jew has to learn what are the deep messages that we have from that, from this holiday, from the things about this holiday, and so on. And we know that everything has to have some relevance for us today and for the future. But derech zeh, and based on this, we have to understand what it means, this mourning between the days of Bein Hamitzarim and Tisha'Bav. With us Jews, every one of the holidays is, every one of the festivals, holidays, is something for the future. So what is the purpose of these days? Certainly, it is not a time to be mourning what we had and we no longer have. The Jew doesn't take up his time mourning on what happened in the past, unless it has a message, unless it's connected to today and to the future, to the present and to the future. Kvar Muzal, the Chachamim tell us, Gezerah al Amei sheishtakech min alev shenemar Nishkachti kameis milev. It says that there's a gezerah under somebody who dies, and eventually, at least to some extent, they'll be forgotten from our memory. Not true when you lose a loved one. You lose a loved one, you always remember, but the pain, even though it stays with you, becomes less and less each time. At least it should. And Tillam says that I have forgotten I have been forgotten like a dead person from my heart. But here, with regard to the Yerushalayim, we say, if I forget Yerushalayim, it means Yerushalayim, we had the Beis Hamikdash. If I forget that, my right hand shall be cut off. Yerushalayim, so that sounds like a contradiction, right? That's in the past. Yerushalayim, he devar chai. Yerushalayim is a living thing. Shein chachash letisbo, can't be forgotten. If I forget Yerushalayim, if you look at Yerushalayim, if you look at the Beis Hamikdash as something that was lost, and Chas v'shalom tishkach yamini, and is no longer there, then you'll forget your right hand. Meaning that you should never forget it. Yesh levar, we can explain this. The meaning of avelut, of this mourning al Beis Hamikdash, he al ishalema imar charbano chuka lebinyano. The meaning of this mourning, of the mourning for the Beis Hamikdash, is because we have the incompleteness of destruction and the desire for the rebuilding. Bnei Israel are not complete, even for one moment, with the Beis Hamikdash being destroyed. We always raise up the memory of the Beis Hamikdash to our heart, and we desire umetzapim, and we look forward to Mata Yivna Beis Hamikdash. When will the Beis Hamikdash be rebuilt? Adas Mamar Mora Kodesh Bekuvrin explaining. That's what Rabbi Bekuvrin said. Shagarua biyoter ikash mashlim es hamatzav kabochu. The worst thing that can happen, the worst punishment a person can happen, is when the person is satisfied with things as they are. I remember there was a publisher of the Denver Post, maybe 60 years ago, 70 years ago, remembering back from my childhood, and in the masthead it said, "There is no hope for the satisfied man," and that's what he's saying here. That the worst thing that could happen is to think that everything that we have today is the way it should be. Everything is fine. And that is the worst punishment. When a Jew thinks, okay, it's possible to live without the Beis Hamikdash, without Mashiach, without the presence of God in our midst every day, as it was during the Beis Hamikdash, when the light of Hashem shined and lit up the entire world. That's the worst punishment that a Jew can have if he has that level of lack of bitachon, faith, belief in God. It happened once with the Rabbi of Abt. The Abt Rebbe is Yehudi. A Jew came in to see him. Jews always go to Rebbes and talk about their tzuras. That's the normal set of events. So a Jew came in to talk to him, but Tina Lefanas Kotzras, he spilled out his heart, told about all his tzuras, all his difficulties. And it's to him that the Abta Rebbe wasn't really connecting with his pain. And the Apter Rebbe said to him, what about the fact that today we didn't offer the Korban Atomid, the offering which was made in the Beis Hamikdash twice a day, morning and evening? Why we didn't offer that today? And this you're not worried about all? That's not concerning you? You have no greater worry than these things you're telling me about. There's a much greater worry in this world. But the Beis Hamikdash not being able to have korbanos to become closer to Hashem. Yehudi Asher lahashleim im Chorban Beis Hamikdash. The Jew should never be satisfied with the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. And we know that because V'gimel Pamim Bayom, 3 times a day, Mavakesh Yehuda B'Tefillah, we ask in our tefillah, we ask in the prayer, to your city of Jerusalem, with mercy shall we return us. And awaken our hearts to the desire, the longing for the rebuilding of Yerushalayim, the Beis Hamikdash. Specifically in the prayers of the Yom Tovim, there's a constant running of the desire of rebuilding the Beis Hamikdash. Kamamar, as we say, Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, reveal your kingdom to us quickly. As reveal the Beis Hamikdash to us quickly. Melech Rachman, merciful King, Rachem Aleinu, have mercy upon us and rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. Shuvo Aleinu, return us as we were of old to the Beis Hamikdash. V'ishtakukos hazos, ibechinas shel kabanos. This kind of longing, this kind of desire for the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash is like offering a korban to Hashem, like offering a sacrifice to Hashem. Which says, he says, Ki hagaguim ladavar hem yoter gedolim me'etzem hadavar. The desire, the longing for a thing is even greater than the thing itself. Because of this, hu reishis binyan Beis Hamikdash. This is the first part of rebuilding the Beis Hamikdash. Asher nivna mikoch ishtokakosh yisrael mishtokim galus the binyan Beis Hamikdash. The first brick is that brick that we put in the building by our longing, missing of the Beis Hamikdash, feeling it, knowing that this is something that's real, that we're missing, and that we really need. Through this, they will continue. We will continue laying the bricks and rebuilding the Beis Hamikdash. Kasher Yehudi Shoro B'Tachlis Hamriros Ala Adar or Halakut, as a Jew sits in bitterness, recognizing the lacking of the light of God, Shahir B'Beis Hamikdash, that was lighted up in the Beis Hamikdash, Umali Ishtokakos Lazeh, and he's longing for the return of this light. Harizeh Messiah Levinya Beis Hamikdash. This too will help with the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash. U'v'yuchad, v'gimel hashvu shebein hamitzarim, these 3 weeks of Bein Hamitzarim should have mourning Klal Yisrael b'yoter, that awaken, these they should awaken Klal Yisrael more and more as at the Shukah Lebein Beis Hamikdash, should awaken our desire for the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash. Al Kain Tekufa Zu, in this period, Ibe'etzem Tekufa Hitchala Shal Bein Beis Hamikdash. This 3 weeks, we're busy building. This is the beginning of the building of the Beis Hamikdash. That's what we're doing these 3 weeks. We call mitzvos chovot alavovot, the mitzvahs of the desires of our heart, hamotolas Yehudi, that is put upon a Jew. requires a Jew always to strengthen himself, and to awaken his heart as Hatzipiyah, the looking forward to about Simon and the thirst, for the coming of Mashiach, the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash. Yuchad, specifically, B'yom Zeh shall Kara Alai Moed. On this day of Tisha'Bav, they called Tisha'Bav a holiday. A holiday. B'chol Kamash Yehudi Magbiris Hadashokos V'Gagoyim. The more that a person increases his desire and his longing, Shalom, his desire and longing, Harezeh, Mikarav Es Geula, it brings closer the Geula, Haklal, the general Geula for the whole Klal Yisrael, Ves Hagulat Haprat, and your own individual Geula. We can have an individual redemption even before the national redemption. And with this we can understand the story, Philosoph Apalton, the philosopher Apalton. I'm not sure who that is. Apalton, Greek philosopher. I don't know. I didn't have a chance to look at the name, so I don't know who that refers to. One day, this philosopher, Matzas Yirmiyahu Hanavi, he found Yirmiyahu the prophet, Makonen Tamarorim al Churm Abayas. He was crying bitterly over the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. This is after this philosopher had seen the great wisdom of Yirmiyahu Hanavi. He asked him, he says, Eich matim lachacham kamotcha. How is it fitting for a chacham, a wise person like you, livkot al ha'avar, to cry on the past? Hare Beis Hamikdash kvar nisraf. The Beis Hamikdash was burned up. Hey, no, it's not here. The ha'avar is in the past. The past is not here. What is the purpose of your crying? He asked Jeremiah. Yirmiyahu said to him, my friend, I'm not able to answer you. I'll share you on this question. Kilo tavin es hatshuva, because you won't understand the answer. That's a strange answer to give. And you can understand this. Understand that the meaning of mourning, is because of the longing and the desire of the soul. Adas Mamara Kosev, as it says until the Mizmor LeDavid, Psalm to David, B'Yosef Midbar Yehuda, when I was in the desert of the wilderness of Yehuda, Somlecha Nafshi, I was thirsting for you. My soul was thirsting for you. Kamlecha B'Sori, my very flesh was needing you. Shekasher Hayu David B'Midbar Yehuda, when David the Melech, King David, was in the wilderness of Yehuda, Rachel Beis Hamikdash, far from the Beis Hamikdash. And it wasn't that far. You think of it today, we're in Midbar Yehuda right now. We live there in Efrat. It wasn't that far. Yeah, it was far at the time. He didn't have the light of God that lit up the Beis Hamikdash. The month of Av, the whole month of Av is not the whole month. The month of Av till Tisha'Bav is a time where we're thirsting. We're thirsting for God. Our soul is thirsting for God, and our limbs are aching for God. This is the whole aspect of mourning and crying for the destruction of Beis Hamikdash. The longing for the great revelation of the light of God, which will be present again, and which was present when the Beis Hamikdash was standing. Because of B'Shari Avoda or Rabbeinu Yonah, and it says the Shari Avoda or Rabbeinu Yonah, Eis Hoya Bais B'Vinyanu, at the time that the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash, Hoysa Shom B'Chol Eis B'Chinas Mamar Har Sinai. Whenever the Beis Hamikdash was in existence, it was as if you were standing the whole time, as if you were standing before Har Sinai, with Dragas or Nevuah V'Lamal Mizeh, and the level of prophecy, and even higher than this, just like we were at the time when we received the Torah at Sinai. We're moving to Shuvas Yirmiyahu, to understand the answer of Yirmiyahu, Sheni Yochel Hasbiro Hesher B'Chiyaso Hilo Yavim, where he said to this non-Jewish philosopher, I can't explain this because you won't understand. This longing, this missing of the light of God, a non-Jew can't really understand it. It is something that is genetically within the Jew, and a Jew can understand it and can feel it, and we can feel what we're crying for. To a non-Jew, it looks like we're crying over something that happened in the past, and it's a waste of our energy. He said, Shomer al Apostle Tiru, this is talking about when Bitya, the daughter of Paro, went down to the sea and heard a crying. This is when Moshe had been put in the basket in the sea, was floating in the sea, and heard a crying. And Vatiro, and she saw Behine Nar Bocha, a child was crying. Vatomer, she said, Biyaldehu Ivrim Zeh. This is a child of the Jews. This is a Jewish child. Why? Shevachiyaso Hakira Shehu Yahudi. From the very cry of Moshe Rabbeinu, from the very cry of this Jewish baby, she recognized that he was a Jew. Kirasa, she saw, Shebocha Bechi Shel Tikva, that the cry of a baby, Jewish baby, the cry of a Jew, is a cry of hope. Bechia Shel Tikva, Lo Bechi Shel Yush, not a cry of despair, not a cry of giving up. No matter how we're crying, no matter how we're pained, we cry out to Hashem, and we know that we're crying to Hashem, not out of despair, but out of hope that Hashem, you will take us out of this difficult matzav we're in, and bring us to the Beis Hamikdash. This is the cry of a Jew. Contrary to a non-Jew, when a non-Jew is crying, it's a cry of Yush, giving up. Shebirasan zu he sasan. The aspect of brokenness, which is like death. And during the Shoah, the Jews in the Shoah, they couldn't cry because of this difficult matzav of Yush, of giving up. When a Jew cries on the destruction of Beis Hamikdash, it's a cry of hope. Shimarov Gagoav with Hashkuso the Beis Hamikdash, is crying out of the longing and desire for the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash. That's what Yirmiyahu was saying. So I can't explain the depths of this kind of a crying. It's contrary to your nature. You're not a Jew. You don't understand this cry of hope as opposed to a cry of despair. When you cry, you're crying because you've given up. Therefore, you ask the question of me. Yes, how is it possible for somebody as wise as you to cry on something that was in the past. This crying that I was making wasn't crying about the past. I'm crying cries of hope for the future. The he shall gaguim, the shuka lati lavu, cries of longing, desire for the time to come. Lo all over, not for the past. V'zeh Omer, or Chaim says this. Shemutar livkos b'Shabbos. You're allowed to cry on Shabbos. You're allowed to cry on Shabbos for the destruction of Beis Hamikdash, for other things too. Kiven shebechiyah shel Yehudi, because the crying of a Jew, einu tsar al over, is not pain on what has happened, el gaguim v'tikva lasi, but is a desire and a hope, a longing for what's going to happen in the future. Lor zeh, because of this, yesh lamar ho'inyan, we can understand Yud Beis Tzrufei Shem Havaya, Baruch Hashem. There are 12 different contractions of God's name, 4-letter name of God, Yud Kei Vav Kei. And each contraction of the name, this is a Kabbalistic thing, and I can't really get into any deep explanation, but each contraction of the name represents 1 month of the 12-month Jewish calendar. So it says, Hatziruf Shel Chodesh Av, the permutation of God's name for the month of Av, who comes out to the wording, Haskes Shema Yisrael, Hayom Hazeh Niyesalam. Remember, pay attention, listen, O Israel, that this day you will be for a people. You will become a nation, become a people. So Chorez says it should be just the opposite. This is opposite L'Yaru Shel Chodesh Av, the aspect of the month of Av. The people was destroyed. How are you saying this month you'll become a people? Achin Komer Tisha'Bav. Therefore we say Tisha'Bav Hu Yom HaBinyan is a day of building, a day of rebuilding. Shavelos, the mourning of Bechiyah Shel Yisrael, and the crying of Bnei Yisrael Yom Hazeh, on this day, a Binyan Beis Hamikdash is crying on the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash. Olam HaBinyan, from the world of rebuilding, Midamos Elu, and these cries that we're crying, Cholech V'niv the Beis Hamikdash. These cries, these tears are going and rebuilding the Beis Hamikdash. Specifically on this day, we became a people. Because here, the Jewish people are created from anew. Before Nami Madorvish, Tisha'Bav Nikro Moed, we also see that Tisha'Bav is called a holiday, a festival, for the cause of Korelai Moed, as we said earlier in Eicha. We call it a moed, a holiday. Vov Yisrael, maybe Midrash, it brings a Midrash, Shlohe Yom Moed Yisrael, Yom Shemecha. This blows your mind. It says there has not been a day in the history of the Jewish people as great of a festival as the day that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. Shlocha Yom Moed Yisrael Kiyom Shnech. There's never been a day as great a festival for Bnei Yisrael as the day that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. Why? Kiyom Zehu Yesod HaYesodos. This day was the foundation of the foundation, the bedrock, the Binyan Beis Hamikdash, to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash, the Binyan Am Yisrael, to build the people of Israel. Kiavelis Hayom Hazeh, the morning of this day, Matzmicha, will cause to sprout, Umamshich, and continue Es Hagula, the redemption. The Kedushas Levi Isa, a pasuk, and the Holy Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Meditcher Rebbe, says on the pasuk, B'chu Tivko B'layla, Go and cry during this night. Dimasu alech lechia, and your tears will be on your cheeks. V'zeh lashon, the Omer says, Kisha Adam Poel b'chiyasov, when a person, a worker, is crying at his work, Azai Admos Shelo Oser Rosham. No. So when we Jews are crying, working on this getting through Tisha'Bav, our tears create an impact, a Rosham. Ubemes, Kisha Adam Bocha al Chorban, when a Jew is crying on the destruction of Beis Hamikdash, Azai Oser Rosham, he makes a Rosham, an impact with his tears. The tears make an impact. And this is what means your tears on your cheeks. Your tears create an impact, an impression above. And we can understand with this, stam bechia, normal crying, nothing comes of it. So the most alechia shezeh nishar kiyom upol rosham, but the crying, the basic English, those tears remain and make an impression. Ugam kein k'moshe nemar shabachia al Beis Hamikdash. It said the crying on the Beis Hamikdash inenu bechia shel chorban is not a crying of destruction. El bechia shel binyan habona mamshichas binyan Beis Hamikdash ha'atid. It's a crying of the rebuilding and the continuing of the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash for the future. Al pizem avoid. From this we can understand what Adamar b'Chazal. The Chazal say, Shuvu b'yom shachar Beis Hamikdash. I'm sorry, Shabo b'yom shachar Beis Hamikdash. On this day that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, no led Menachem. Menachem. No, consolation was born. Menachem was consolation was born. And therefore, every year after Tisha'Bav, after the middle of the day, after Chatzos Hayom, Matchilit Notzeitz Orosh HaMashiach. At that point, we start to see a little bit of the light of Mashiach. So the Chor Yesh Lomor Mashayich Leidason Shel Mashiach Davka Le'om Hazeh. We have to understand what is the connection of the birth of Mashiach on this day, on Tisha B'Av. Elakivin Shebiyom Zeh Ma'orim Yisrael as Hatshuka Le'ula Le'Bnei Beis Hamikdash, because of this day, the Jews awakening through his longing and desire of the rebuilding of Beis Hamikdash, through this longing, the Jews plant the horn of salvation. They plant the seeds of salvation. As the Netivot Shalom says in many other places, what does he say? The Chiyusa, says, I forget the words, the seed of life. When you plant a seed in the ground, the seed, before it starts sprouting, has to be completely destroyed. Just a little bit level left. And that little level is the sprout that gives life. And this, what is left from our tears, is the sprouts that give life to the Jewish people, to the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash. So let us use the rest of these 3 weeks properly and give some thought to what we have to do and how we have to work towards the coming of Mashiach, to bring Mashiach. It's our job. It's not the job of somebody else. You can't say the Mashiach is not coming because of what Ruvain down the road is doing, or what somebody else down the road is doing. No, Mashiach is not coming because of what we're not doing, what I'm not doing. I have to work at it. I have to be better. I have to improve myself. There's plenty of room for improvement. We have to look at these 3 weeks as a way to cry with hope that with our looking to see how we can better ourselves, how we can do tshuva, how we can bring love into the world to counter the schinas chinam, the free hatred that was prevalent in the second Beis Hamikdash that destroyed it. How can we counter that in our time and change that sinas chinam to havas chinam, to everybody freely loving one another without any reason? That's what we have to work at. Give us all a blessing that we should succeed in doing that, and we should be able to celebrate Tisha'Bav as the moed that it really is and is meant to be. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Amen. Amen.
You're welcome, and wish everybody a good rest of the week and a wonderful Shabbat. You know, it's Tuesday already. It's almost Shabbos. It's almost here.
Yeah.
You know, tomorrow morning and Wednesday morning, in the Psalm of the day, the end of the Psalm says L'chu Narananu. So we're already doing Kabbalah Shabbos tomorrow morning. So let's get ready for it. Let's bring in the greatest Shabbos. Thanks.
Thanks, Nate.
Thank you, Nate.
Thank you all for listening, and be well. All the best for everybody.
Bless. Good Shabbos.
Shabbos, good Shabbos. I'm stopping this. I'm stopping the recording. If I can find the right button.